Look at this calendar. It maps out how a normal chronic illness distributes itself across a month. Human bodies are entirely indifferent to our schedules. If someone is genuinely unwell, those sick days scatter randomly. They land on boring Tuesdays just as often as important Saturdays. But sometimes that distribution shifts. The exhaustion never seems to hit on a slow Sunday. Instead, it hits the precise evening you finally carved out an hour for yourself. The mystery stomach pain arrives the morning you were supposed to fly to your sister's wedding, or your promotion is announced. Natural biology is entirely blind to your personal calendar. A persistent mathematical overlap between your significant moments and their medical events points to a behavioral mechanism. Bodies are rarely that tactical. This perfectly timed unwellness is a measurable phenomenon. It hides in plain sight, disguised as a series of unfortunate coincidences that always seem to cost you your independence. This pattern is difficult to maim because of the emotional trap. If bad behavior looks like yelling or slamming doors, you can point to it. But when the move arrives wrapped in a heating pad and a sad face, questioning it makes you feel like a monster. Guilt provides the necessary cover. By treating each headache or sudden mood crash as an isolated piece of bad luck, you maintain the other person's plausible deniability. You excuse the timing, and you start to doubt your own perception. To see the architecture of control, you have to stop evaluating the symptoms emotionally and start evaluating their timing chronologically. The easy answer is to assume they are calculating, that they sit down every morning and decide to fake an illness. However, people are rarely conscious about their own manipulations. This is usually an older, automatic reflex. Think of it as a planetary orbit. One partner needs to be the absolute center. When they sense your attention drifting toward a friend or your career, they subconsciously use whatever tool is available to yank the focus back to themselves. Using quiet fragility is a hallmark of covert personalities. By becoming the patient, they reclaim the orbit through a social script. We must never walk away from someone who appears to be suffering. This leads to complementary functioning. The more you overfunction, by canceling your plans and absorbing their share of the domestic labor, the more structural room you create for them to underfunction. Over time, your accommodations act as training. Their nervous system learns that manifesting physical symptoms is the most efficient way to neutralize your expectations. This control mechanism relies on 3 distinct behavioral variants to avoid detection. Recognizing the specific texture of the illness helps cut through the confusion. Look at this timeline. First, the dramatic flare, a sudden symptom arriving to derail a conflict. Next, the slow drain, a permanent lethargy shielding against daily expectations. Finally, the recovery pivot, requiring days of nursing, stalling your needs until the issue is stale. Missing these variants is how the cycle continues. You end up continuously nursing the aftermath of their symptoms instead of addressing the core issue. This creates the sympathy veto. You find yourself indefinitely postponing necessary boundaries or life plans because you feel pity for their perfectly timed unwellness. Eventually, you start to edit your own life preemptively. You stop mentioning a friend's invitation because you already know it will trigger a flare-up. You shrink your world to keep their body quiet. This internal self-censorship is the goal of coercive control. The dynamic completes when you erase your own agency to maintain a temporary stability. Breaking this loop requires stepping out of the emotional fog and relying on objective data collection for 30 days. This is the 2-column protocol. On the left, log your personal events and joys. On the right, log their reported symptoms. At the end of the month, look for the overlap, the moments where your needs perfectly match their symptoms. Documenting these chronologies kills plausible deniability. It moves the conversation away from theorizing about their intent and toward the reality of the results. Tracking these dates provides the objective proof needed to settle your own self-doubt. It secures your perception of reality against the blurring effect of constant accommodation. Once the pattern is visible, you can run a diagnostic test. Make a low-stakes plan, like coffee with a friend. Announce it, wait for the symptom, and then refuse to cancel. Observe what happens to the symptom when your departure doesn't result in your return. Real symptoms continue regardless of your behavior. Symptoms used for control often stabilize the moment their function is removed. You cannot fix another person's internal reflexes. However, you can stop acting as the prosthetic stability that allows the pattern to repeat. Recognizing these patterns is a necessary survival skill. It is the first move toward a life where you stop apologizing for your existence and finally walk out of the emotional trap.